The courtroom was silent. Cameras were rolling. A man accused of horrific crimes stood confidently before the judge, not just as a defendant, but as his own lawyer. No one expected what would happen next, because the man questioning witnesses was the same man accused of the crimes. In this video, you'll see how Ted Bundy turned his own trial into a calculated performance, how he tried to control the narrative, and the moment everything began to unravel. Stay until the end, because what happened in that courtroom changed how the world saw him forever. In the 1970s, across different parts of the United States, young women began to disappear. College campuses became places of quiet concern. Friends stopped walking alone. Families started asking more questions. Reports came in slowly at first, then more frequently. Witnesses described a man who didn't seem threatening. He was polite, well-spoken, sometimes even described as attractive. He would approach women in public places, often wearing a sling, pretending to be injured. He would ask for help carrying books or loading something into his car. It seemed harmless. But in those moments, trust was being used in a way no one expected. As investigations continued, a pattern began to form. The victims shared similarities. The locations, though spread out, suggested movement. Authorities were dealing with someone organized, someone careful. But there was still no clear identity, until one name began to appear more than once. Ted Bundy, a law student, intelligent, calm under pressure, someone who blended in easily. At first glance, he didn't match what people expected, and that made the situation even more unsettling. But what made this case truly unusual wasn't just the investigation. It was what would happen later inside the courtroom. Bundy was eventually arrested after a routine traffic stop. Inside his vehicle, officers found items that raised suspicion. Nothing immediately proved guilt, but enough to ask serious questions. He remained calm throughout. He answered carefully. He denied involvement. To some observers, he appeared composed, even cooperative. That calmness would follow him into the trial, where perception would become one of his strongest tools. When the trial began, something unexpected happened. Bundy made a decision that surprised even experienced legal professionals. He chose to represent himself. He stepped into the role of his own defense attorney. This meant he could question witnesses directly. He could speak freely in court. He could shape how he was seen. For a time, it worked. He appeared confident. He asked structured questions. He moved around the courtroom with control. Some even described his behavior as calculated. But beneath that control, pressure was building. As the trial progressed, witnesses were called forward. One by one, they described what they saw, what they remembered. Some accounts were uncertain. Others were more direct. Bundy cross-examined them himself. He maintained eye contact. He challenged details. He tried to create doubt. To those watching, it was unusual. A defendant speaking directly to witnesses in such serious circumstances. But the more he spoke, the more attention he drew. And attention can be unpredictable. The prosecution began presenting physical evidence, items recovered, timelines established, movements tracked. Each piece alone might not have been enough, but together they formed a clearer picture, a pattern that became harder to ignore. Bundy responded by increasing his involvement. He questioned more, spoke more, tried to stay in control of every moment. But the courtroom was not just a stage. It was a place where facts mattered. And slowly those facts began to outweigh performance. Then came a moment that shifted the atmosphere. A witness took the stand and spoke with certainty. The identification was direct, clear, not based on assumption, but recognition. The room changed. The tension increased. Bundy approached carefully, maintaining composure. He asked questions, attempting to challenge the statement. But the responses remained steady, consistent. For the first time, it became clear that confidence alone would not be enough. Outside the courtroom, public attention grew. News coverage expanded. People followed every update. The case was no longer just about evidence. It became a discussion about perception. How someone could appear one way and be accused of something entirely different. Inside the courtroom, Bundy continued his approach. Calm, structured, controlled. But each day, the weight of the case grew heavier, and control began to slip, not suddenly, but gradually. Then came another critical point. The prosecution connected multiple elements together. Movements, witness accounts, and recovered evidence began to align. The narrative became clearer, the questions became fewer, and the focus shifted from possibility to probability. Bundy attempted to interrupt that momentum. He questioned details. He revisited earlier statements. But repetition could not erase what had already been established. In the final stages of the trial, the courtroom atmosphere was different. The early curiosity had faded. In its place was a sense of anticipation. Everyone understood that a decision was approaching. Bundy, still representing himself, made his final efforts. He spoke with the same calm tone, the same measured pace. But this time, the response from the room was not the same. The impact had changed. When the verdict was delivered, the moment was quiet. No dramatic reactions, just a clear conclusion. Ted Bundy was found guilty. The courtroom, once filled with uncertainty, now held a final answer. The performance was over, and what remained was the reality of the case. What made this trial stand out was not just the outcome, it was the process. A defendant who chose to speak for himself, to question witnesses, to shape perception. But in the end, the structure of the courtroom held firm. Evidence, consistency, and testimony carried more weight than presentation. Cases like this leave lasting questions about trust, about appearances, about how easily perception can be influenced, and how, over time, facts bring clarity. The trial became more than a legal process. It became a reminder that the truth is often built slowly, piece by piece. If you found this story insightful, subscribe for more true crime courtroom stories that focus on facts, process, and the moments that change everything.